Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. General Hospital spoilers. Laura begs Isaiah to perform risky transplant surgery. General Hospital spoilers tease that Isaiah Gannon, so Andy Wilson, has spent most of his time so far in Port Charles as a patient at General Hospital. Once Isaiah regained consciousness, fans began to learn a little more about him. Not only is he a doctor, but he's also a skilled surgeon with a specialty in transplants. When Lucky Spencer, Jonathan Jackson, asked Isaiah about the risks involved in the transplant surgery, it was clear that Isaiah is extremely knowledgeable on the subject. When Lucky asked Isaiah about doing the surgery himself, Isaiah reminded his friend that he has vowed never to step foot in an operating room again. While Isaiah didn't go into detail, it was clear that something terrible happened the last time he performed a surgery. As he gets closer to Jordan Ashford, Tanisha Harper, perhaps Isaiah will open up to her about his reasons. Perhaps a patient of his died, and Isaiah blames himself. Meanwhile, Lucky is waiting on the final approval to become a liver donor for his sister Lulu Spencer, Alexa Havens. Chances are Lucky will soon get the go-ahead. That means that Lucky and Lulu's mother, Laura Collins, Jenny Francis, will soon be returning home to a situation that put both of her children at risk. Laura has been searching the globe for Lucky in order for him to be Lulu's donor, but she may not realize just yet the dangers involved with the surgery for both the donor and the recipient. Once Laura gets settled in and reunites with Lucky, then, the reality of the situation will begin to come clear. With both of her children potentially at risk, Laura is going to want the very best surgeon to perform the surgery. It won't be long until she discovers that Isaiah is the best person for the job. Look for her to beg him to do the surgery. And although Isaiah will likely refuse at first, perhaps Jordan will be able to convince him that he really is the best person for the job. What do you think? Do you like Isaiah? Why has he refused to perform another surgery? Can Laura change Isaiah's mind in order to save both of her children? Anything can happen in Port Charles, so stay tuned to General Hospital, airing weekdays on ABC. In the bustling halls of General Hospital, tension hung heavy in the air as Laura Collins paced nervously outside the operating room. Her normally composed demeanor was shattered, her face etched with worry, reflecting the gravity of the situation. She was about to make an impossible choice, one that could either save a life or shatter her world completely. Inside the room, the doctors were preparing for the most challenging surgery the hospital had seen in years. A high-risk transplant that could change everything. But this was no ordinary surgery. It was a last-ditch effort to save a life that seemed all but lost. And Laura, as the matriarch of her family and a fierce protector of the people she loved, knew she had no other option. The patient, her beloved grandson Spencer Cassadine, had been in critical condition for weeks after a sudden and aggressive illness ravaged his body. Time was running out, and the only possible solution was a risky and experimental transplant procedure that few surgeons in the world would even consider. But Laura had found hope in the form of Dr. Isaiah Willis, a brilliant but controversial transplant surgeon known for taking on the impossible. Isaiah was a man who thrived on the edge of medical science, known for his unorthodox methods and cold demeanor. He had a reputation for success, but his victories often came at a cost, both professionally and emotionally. Many in the medical community questioned his ethics and the high-risk nature of his procedures, but his results were undeniable. He was the only surgeon who might be able to save Spencer, but agreeing to the surgery meant gambling with his life. As Laura waited, Isaiah finally arrived, his crisp white coat swaying with each determined step. His piercing eyes met hers, but there was no warmth in his gaze, only a steely resolve. "Mrs. Collins," he said, his voice sharp and efficient. "I understand you've been briefed on the risks involved." Laura nodded, her hands trembling as she clutched her purse. "Yes, Dr. Willis. But I need to hear it from you. What are the chances?" Isaiah's expression didn't change. He was used to these conversations, accustomed to the emotional weight that came with his line of work. "The procedure is unprecedented. It's a combination of a full organ transplant and regenerative medicine therapy. There's less than a 30% chance that Spencer will survive the surgery. But without it, his organs will fail within the week." Laura felt a lump rise in her throat. 30%. That wasn't hope. That was a shot in the dark, a desperate gamble. But when she looked through the window at Spencer's frail body, hooked up to machines that were barely keeping him alive, she knew there was no other choice. She couldn't let him go without a fight. "Please, Dr. Willis," Laura whispered, her voice cracking. "You're our only chance. I'm begging you to do everything you can. Spencer has his whole life ahead of him. He's been through so much already. I can't lose him now." Isaiah studied her for a moment, his gaze unreadable. In that moment, he saw not just another patient's desperate family member, but a grandmother fighting for the life of her grandson. He was known for his detached professionalism, but something in Laura's plea stirred him in a way he hadn't expected. "Mrs. Collins," he said, softening his tone just slightly, "I won't lie to you. This surgery is dangerous, and there are risks we can't fully anticipate. But if you're willing to take that chance, I'll do everything in my power to save him." Tears welled up in Laura's eyes as she nodded. "Thank you, Dr. Willis. I trust you." Isaiah turned to head into the operating room, but Laura stopped him with a trembling hand on his arm. "One more thing," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Spencer is all I have left. I've already lost so many people I love, my daughter, my brother. I can't go through that again. Please, don't let him die." Isaiah's eyes met hers again, and for the briefest moment, his stoic mask cracked. He gave a small nod before walking through the doors, where his team was waiting. As they prepped Spencer for surgery, Isaiah's mind raced through the procedure. Every step had to be perfect. There was no room for error. He faced countless high-stakes surgeries before, but this one felt different. Maybe it was Laura's plea, or perhaps it was the knowledge that this young man had so much to live for. As the minutes turned to hours, the tension in the waiting room grew unbearable. Laura was joined by her friends and family, Max Scorpio, Felicia Jones, and even Elizabeth Weber, who sat with her, offering quiet support. But no one could ease the storm of fear and hope raging inside her. She knew this surgery could either give her grandson a second chance at life or take him away forever. Meanwhile, inside the operating room, Isaiah and his team worked with surgical precision, every move calculated and controlled. Spencer's body was weak, his vital signs unstable, but Isaiah refused to let it rattle him. His hands moved swiftly, and his mind was focused entirely on the task at hand. Hours later, as the final sutures were placed, Isaiah stepped back and surveyed the scene. Spencer's heart was beating, albeit faintly, and the new organs had been successfully transplanted. But the next 24 hours would be critical. The boy's body needed to accept the new organs, and any number of complications could arise. Exhausted, Isaiah removed his surgical mask and walked into the waiting room. Laura immediately stood, her heart in her throat as she waited for the verdict. "How is he?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Isaiah hesitated for a moment before speaking. "The surgery was successful, but he's not out of the woods yet. The next 24 hours will determine if his body accepts the transplant. We'll monitor him closely, but he's stable for now." Laura let out a shaky breath, her heart still racing but filled with cautious hope. "Thank you, Dr. Willis," she whispered. "Thank you for giving us a chance." Isaev gave her a brief nod, but his mind was already back in the operating room, calculating Spencer's odds of survival. He knew the fight was far from over, but for now, Laura had hope. And sometimes that was all anyone could ask for in the world of medicine.